What more does USC need from the transfer portal to help itself prepare for a college football playoff run?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com. Today, all things USC Trojans. Transfer portal. What they accomplished from the winter was really good, but is it enough? And which positions do the Trojans need to hit to make a run at the college football playoff? We're going to examine how much Lincoln Riley is really going to be able to use Jayden Maiava at the quarterback position. And finally, the 2025 win total by yours truly. That is my prediction at the end of the show for how many games USC will win. So first off, let's examine what they already brought in from the portal, talk about how they really went after it all across the board and did a great job. And then we'll get into some of the other aspects of the program. First thing, and I didn't know this without really researching it, USC hit it hard in regards to the whole roster, but the running back they picked up, this is a sleeper. He's a really good football player, and I'm not sure why he didn't get more attention. I know he played at New Mexico, but Eli Sanders is really good. I don't care what level you play at. If you averaged over 7 yards a tote, had over 1,000 yards, you're pretty darn good. He came from Iowa State, played 1 year at New Mexico. Now he's going to finish up his career as a USC Trojan. Bigger guy in terms of just the way he's built. He's not like humongous. He's not 230 or anything, but he's a little over 200 pounds, and he's a power player. I like this pickup for USC because Lincoln Riley's offenses usually work best when they're able to run GT trap, when they're able to come around with some draws and screens to the running backs that keep teams off balance. Last year, Woody Marks was a great example of that. When he was healthy, that offense was a pain to stop because he was a bull. This is another guy that can run over some people and also has pretty good speed. As an addition, I just want to bring this up. I know he's not a transfer portal player, but he is a transfer, and that's out of the junior college ranks. He won the national title with Hutchinson Community College, and he was National Offensive Player of the Year. Wayman Jordan. I think he is going to be a huge addition to the USC backfield. I don't know at what point he's going to make his mark, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he started. And the 1-2 punch, again, with him and Sanders, in addition to what they already have on the roster, this is a really good running back room for the Trojans now. You don't know the names yet, not necessarily, unless you really follow SC, but you will soon. Jordan's another guy. Quick cuts. He's got some power. He will definitely run between the tackles, and he hits the open field, and he's gone. So USC is not going to have any problems running the football. When it comes to the overall look at the transfers, the guy that I thought was the most important they had isn't on offense, though. It's on defense. Bishop Fitzgerald at NC State. He played over 700 snaps last year. He's a safety that will come into the box and hit you. He had 20 stops, which means plays at or near the line of scrimmage where he made a tackle. And according to Pro Football Focus, over 60 tackles. Now, NC State did not have a great defense, but he was one of the shining stars of that group. And to say the least, he's in a better scenario now because NC State kind of fell off. I think the Trojans are going to make a kind of a resurrection this year. And I'll get to my win total later, but he's going to be a key to it. If I am not right about what Fitzgerald can do, then my win total won't be right either. Hint. I'm probably going to pick higher than what a lot of people have. That being the case, they need two things out of their safeties and their secondary in general, which I didn't see enough of last year. One, getting everybody lined up correctly, adjusting to the formations, whether it's a shift or just being lined up wrong to begin with. I don't think they had enough proper technique, and too many guys just busting open. I don't care which game it was. USC almost always had a game or play in a game where they just gave up a huge play. Having a veteran come over from NC State, again, over 700 snaps, proven contributor, that's got to help. If they can just get rid of the big plays they give up, they'll be in a better spot. Here's an example. They were 98th in the nation last year in pass defense. That should never happen for the USC Trojans. Ever, ever, ever. 235.8 yards passing yardage allowed per game. We'll see if I'm right, but I think that Bishop Fitzgerald will be a big part of what they do. Also, just to stick with the secondary, DJ Harvey, he's coming over from San Jose State and Virginia Tech. Another corner. We're going to talk about corner overall here in a minute, but that's really important because they are extremely young at the corner spot. Hint, that's a spot we're going to talk about later in regards to what they need. Sticking on the defensive side of the ball again, the spot where they certainly didn't miss, especially with girth, Keeshawn Silver out of Kentucky and Jamaal Jarrett out of Georgia, two massive guys. They are both capable of playing nose guard in a three-man front. They are both capable of demanding double teams. And while I don't think they're natural playmakers per se, if you don't double them and either one of those guys hit your quarterback, it's bad news. I'll be curious to see how teams adjust to the added size the Trojans have, being able to rotate guys like that. And they still have some other really talented players up front on their defense. So it's going to be a process of figuring out, should they rotate those guys at the same spot? Do they both play nose and play D-tackle? How do they do that? I'm curious to see what they come up with in the fall. I'm sure they'll also experiment quite a bit here in the spring, but you got Anthony Lucas at one spot. That's a really good football player to transfer from A&M. Maybe Cameron Fountain takes that next step. He's the key. He's the pass rusher, the long 6'6" kid. He's got all the tools, but he's only played a little bit as a primary guy. He needs to take a big step forward. And for that to happen, it would help a lot if they were getting some double teams on the inside. So he was always single blocked, but we'll see. But again, Jarrett, Silver, those are really big bodies in the middle. SC needed the size, so good for them. Also on defense, I'm curious to see if they add anybody at linebacker. They could in the portal, but I don't think it's a huge need. They got two pretty good players there, but maybe they'll add somebody in regards to depth. Skipping back over to the offensive side, I have a couple of questions. Number one, and maybe the biggest question overall, they got two transfers. They got DJ Wingfield and they got Jayden Reed. Now, both these guys are experienced, but that doesn't mean they're ready for USC and a run to the college football playoff. Here's a couple of examples. Winfield was a guard at Purdue, and last year, this is just what Pro Football Focus had for him against Notre Dame. Pass protection, 13.3. Basically, he was a turnstile, and he's projected by some to either start or be like one of the first guys off the bench. We'll see how it plays out all the way through fall camp. But if he's starting and he's like at that level again, they have zero shot to make the playoff. I mean, none. The other guy, Jayden Reed, that's a kid out of Syracuse. Now, the kid was a starter, big body guy. They're both 6'3", 6'4", over 300 pounds. But he was just a solid player across the board, whether it's his total grade for PFF, run block, or pass block. They're all in the 60s. He needs to take another step up. Again, when his offenses work best, Lincoln Riley runs downhill. GT, draws, they'll run ISO, they'll run quarterback power. They'll do anything they can to isolate you in the middle of the field after they spread you out. He's a master at it, but you still got to complete the blocks. The biggest thing that they need on offense, in my opinion, without a doubt, is to look for another talented player that can at least compete for playing time and maybe even start out of the spring window. We'll get, again, into that a little bit more. The guy that I'm curious about, and I don't know what to expect because he's taken another step up, is Prince Strachan. I don't know, or Strachan, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. My apologies. Wide receiver from Boise State. Good player, but he's not like overwhelmingly experienced, and he's not been the guy. And obviously Boise last year was a run offense. So he's been in the playoff. That's good news, but he had 25 catches, 304 yards. He had one touchdown, averaged just over 12 yards a catch. Is he your big-bodied boundary receiver? Maybe. Are they going to be able to have anybody else that could do that? Maybe, but we'll see. I need to find out if they're going to go in the portal and get somebody else. Maybe he gets it done all the way through spring ball if they don't have to, but that's a question mark for me. Lastly, on offense, just kind of looking at it overall, I know that people are curious about Maiava. I think he's going to be really good. I don't think they're getting anybody out of the portal. I know there's been a little discussion about that. We'll see if I'm right. And on defense, I mentioned this a minute ago, but just to reiterate, corner is a concern because it's so inexperienced, and I just want to give a little bit of information on that just to put it out there. And I'm sure they'll have somebody they get out of the spring window, but can they get an impact guy? That's important because besides Harvey, and I know they could move guys around and whatnot, they got Braylon Conley, redshirt freshman. They've got Isaiah Rubin. There's Marcellus Williams. Like, these are all freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and you got guys that you could move over. Maybe a safety can play it. Is that enough? I highly doubt that's going to get you to the playoff, and that's USC's goal. There's no doubt about it. That is their goal. When we go over their schedule, it is pretty manageable. There's a reason to believe they can be 10-2 or better if they hit their spring window just right. So that's something to think about on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, like, the portal haul in general for USC was really good in the winter window. But now we need to talk about overall numbers and some other things from the spring window. That is next here on the portal. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power you through. Whether you're staying up late and watching the tournament like myself, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Again, basketball tournament, a lot of us have stayed up watching it. Probably need something to get you going in the morning. 5-Hour Energy will help you get to the gym. It'll help you get to work. It'll help you get your day started. So make sure you got some. And if you haven't and you got to run out the door, it's easy to find it. You can pick one up at your local convenience store, gas station, or grocery store, wherever you go. So head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, again, you can grab one at your local convenience store, grocery store. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy. So to reiterate, I think the following positions are the keys. Offensive line and corner. Those are the two that are locks. D-line, maybe. I like having Lucas at one end. That's a heck of a football player, especially now that they got the big bodies in the middle. We'll see if Fountain is the guy at edge. He's got all the talent in the world, but they may want to add somebody there. Linebacker, they got some pretty good starters. You could possibly add a veteran to that group. I don't think that they're in any concern at running back with the two guys that got transferred in. And they're also not exactly shy of talent. They got another kid that already played some at running back this past year. I believe it was the USC game against Notre Dame where Brian Jackson had a pretty good game at like 70 yards rushing off the bench. So they're in a good spot there. And they've got the kid that I love more than anybody else on the roster is Makai Lemon, the receiver. He'll be their number one guy. He's a dude. I think he could challenge for close to 100 receptions this year, but he's going to get a lot of attention. So again, does Strachan do well enough where he can draw some attention and Lemon's not getting doubled all the time? Jacoby Lane's a really good player. So they got two. Jay Fair's coming over from Auburn. He didn't do much there. I don't know a ton about Xavier Jordan. That's a guy that's a possibility, but maybe adding another receiver, even if it's just an experienced guy, not a bad idea. But again, O-line, I have concerns there. Probably need a guard or a center. Somebody that can play both would be great. Need at least one. Two's not out of the question. And the bigger thing, and good luck with this, can you find not just one, maybe even two corners that can play right away, one of which that can be a dude? I have nothing against having Harvey coming in. DJ Harvey's a good player. But are you really going to depend on him to be your number one against Michigan, Notre Dame, and Oregon? Those are the three most difficult teams, and we'll go over it again here in a minute. I don't know if that's good enough to get you to the playoff. And if Harvey gets beat up in any game and he has to come out for the lineup for a couple of series, or God forbid he misses like 3 or 4 games or more, USC right now, I don't see how that is a playoff defensive back room because it's so inexperienced. Now, they could hit the inside straight, and 1 or 2 of those guys could be total dudes. Absolutely could happen. But is that really the likelihood of things to happen? I doubt that. I also don't know if you can count on everybody just to stay healthy. So just from a number standpoint, adding 1 more guy wouldn't be bad. And again, 2 would be better. USC has a chance to make the playoff if they hit this inside straight, but corner is going to be a big, big factor with that. And before we go on to the predictions, one other thing that I want to mention, looking at the roster in the way that Lincoln Riley finds just a multitude of ways to get skill guys an opportunity to play. Don't forget about special teams, whether it's a punter, whether it's a kicker, a snapper, all those little things. I don't go into that much. I don't try to analyze kickers and everything, but they've got to make sure all that stuff is lined up too. So you get your best opportunities in games because you hate losing because of kickers. There's been too many teams that have done that over the years. I'm not sure where they stand, but special teams also matter. When we come back, we're going to talk about my prediction based on their schedule, going to go through it, what I think they need to do to get to the playoff. That's next here on The Portal. The NCAA tournament and the Final Four are finally here, and we're giving you a chance to get on the action like never before at FanDuel. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. 200 extra bucks for anything from the buzzer beaters, halftime scores, or anything else you want to pick. It's up to you and figure out who is going to cut down the nets. For me, it's about the underdog players, the role players, who's going to step up. You got 4 big-time teams, Florida, Auburn, Houston. Those are the teams that I think are going to be unhappy at the end. I like Duke in this, but we'll see. I'm a big believer in Cooper Flagg, but that doesn't mean teams aren't going to double him. Maybe it's somebody else from Duke that takes over. I trust in that roster. I think Cooper will get him there, but somebody else might make the shot. So over-unders on the best players, we'll see, and also halftime scores. By the way, just as an example, Houston the other day against Tennessee was up 29-12 at one point, and that game was over. So halftime spreads are kind of interesting too. Visit FanDuel.com and get on the Final Four action at FanDuel. USC's final record. What's it going to be and why? I'll give you 2 scenarios here. If they hit the inside straight, again, they got to get at least 1, if not 2 players, an offensive line and corner for me to feel good. I wouldn't mind seeing a D lineman and a receiver. Anything else is a bonus. Running back's good. I think they're good at quarterback. Safety, they should be in a good spot. I really like Fitzgerald out of NC State. They've got Makai coming back at receiver. He'll be an All-American candidate, deservedly so. They got a really good chance. But I got them at 9-3 right now, and their top 3 games in terms of, my opinion, difficulty are Michigan, at Notre Dame, and they got to go to Oregon. Those are 3 pretty tough games. But just looking at the schedule overall and just trying to figure out, like, where are some of the other places they could trip up? Well, and I'm not trying to be mean on this, but there's a few games at the beginning of the year. If USC does not start 4-0, something's wrong. I'm going to share my screen for those of you that are on YouTube, and I'll explain it right down the line from first game to end for those of you that are not. But, I mean, beginning of the schedule is, well, quite frankly, abysmal. So USC should start out very hot. Here's what we got. Game 1, Missouri State Bears. That's in L.A. Good luck. Georgia Southern Eagles. That's also in L.A. Those are the first 2 games. And then they go to Purdue. Purdue was arguably the worst team in the Power 4 last year. They're 3-0. A little bit tricky. Week number 4, they've got Michigan State, but it's in the Coliseum. Michigan State still doesn't have the roster USC does. Come on, they've got to start 4-0. But then you've got a 4-game stretch with a couple of off weeks involved. You go to Illinois after Michigan State. Illinois' defense is legit. They've got a quarterback that's returning and Luke Altmaier. If you screw around, you could lose that game. This is the kind of game that has killed USC for years. If you're going to get over the hump, if Lincoln Riley is going to get the gorilla off his back, this is the first test. You have to beat the Fighting Illini in Champaign. That's not going to be easy, but again, you've got a quarterback that's a playmaker. You got guys like Makai. You should be able to outscore them at the very least. After that game, you get an off week, and you come home to play Michigan. Now, 2 parts. We don't know who Michigan's quarterback's going to be. We don't know if they're going to play musical chairs at quarterback. There are a lot of questions. But there are 2 things about Michigan you can be assured. They got more depth than Illinois and anybody else they'd played to that point, and they're going to be more physical probably than anybody else. Illinois would be close. They're a very physical team too, but I'll take Michigan. Can USC's, again, I talked about this, is their O-line going to be ready for that? And secondarily, is their defense, the corners and everybody else, are they going to tackle? Are they going to wrap up? Are they going to have mental errors? Michigan, they'll expose you. They got the running backs to do it. They got enough talent at receiver. It's not loaded. But if you miss open tackles, that game gets late into the 4th quarter, even if they're starting a quarterback and then somebody comes in because they're struggling, this and that. It only takes 1 player to make one guy miss, and you can lose a game that you should have won. Kind of like the Penn State game last year for USC, ironically. Penn State shouldn't have won. They were down 2 touchdowns, 17 points, something like that. They came back and won. USC missed too many tackles, had too many mental errors on defense. It happens. So we'll see what happens after that game and how their mental state is, because it doesn't get any easier. The hardest game on the USC schedule is after they play Michigan. It's the scheduling gods did not help them. So again, October 11th, Michigan at home. The very next weekend, they go to South Bend to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Your arch rival, you've lost, I believe, 6 out of 7 to Notre Dame. The Irish will be favored. It'll be a night game. That place will be crazy. There'll be about 5 people in that stadium that are sober. It will be bananas. I expect that to be a good game. But if you lose that, and right now I would pick them to lose it, that's going to hurt you. You can't lose any others probably and make the playoff, because I'm guessing, going to lose one of Illinois or Michigan. Now, if you win both those, the Notre Dame game, you're still in a good spot to make the playoff. But we'll see. I think they're going to lose 2 out of those 3. And then the question is, can they get through the rest of the schedule unscathed? They got Nebraska on the road after an off week. Northwestern comes to the Coliseum in Iowa. Neither one of those teams should win at USC. They shouldn't. The most difficult game left, not a surprise, it's the Oregon Ducks, and it's in Alson Stadium. Good luck. Really hard place to play. We'll see if I'm right, but that, I think, will be their third loss. They got UCLA as the last game. I don't think UCLA is going to do much for them. I don't think that game will even be 10 points. I think USC will run away with that. I got them going 9-3. Can they get to 10-2? I'm still scared. Like, the Illinois game scares me to death, because USC has thrown away so many games over the last 10 years in situations where it's a good team they're playing. It's a good team, but they just get beat up physically, and they don't tackle as well, and they have mental errors. This happened even before Lincoln Riley was there, but it's continued. Deonton Lynn, really good coach. I think they've improved on defense, but I still need to see it. The young corners and some of that stuff on the secondary level with the inexperience just in general gives me concern. But again, we'll see. Fitzgerald being the guy coming over from NC State might help shore that up, even if they are really young at corner. But we'll see. So I got USC going 9-3, just missing the playoff, and they'll be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. But their schedule's hard, not incredibly difficult, but Nebraska on the road's a possible pitfall. Obviously, Illinois is a possible pitfall. Michigan State, you can't completely count out, but it's in LA. This should be a game they win. So I'll see what I can come up with for any other information, and I'll drop it on a YouTube short or something like that if there's anything else. But this is a schedule that USC should be able to manage to win at least 9 games. If not, in my opinion, Lincoln Riley has failed. If they go 8-4 or less, USC has not reached the level that they should. They have more talent than 75% of the teams on the roster than the other 3. I think they're pretty much on par, except for probably Oregon's got the most talented roster, or Notre Dame. Take your pick. Michigan's close. Those teams are all kind of similar. They haven't won those games recently either. They need to find a way to win a game against an elite program. Right now, I don't trust them to do it, but I do think they're going to be better, and I think they'll be more consistent. My guy, again, Fitzgerald. Bishop Fitzgerald is the key on defense, and I think that Jayden Maiava is going to have a really good year. I think he'll be one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the Big Ten, maybe even top 3 or 4. That's just my gut. I think he throws a nice deep ball, and he's mobile enough that he can run Lincoln Riley's offense, and this will be the second year he's in it. He's going to be a lot more comfortable. They're going to put up some points. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in and get all your recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. We're going to be doing a ton of these predictions. Oregon, Notre Dame, Florida, Nebraska, Georgia, all kinds of schools coming up every day here on the Portal Podcast. Make sure you check us out, like, and subscribe.